Hi, I'm Nancy Nangeroni.
I'm Gordine McKenzie.
And this is GenderVision.
Lots of people making big, big bucks. You and me, babe, I see we're out of love. Well, I heard a voice from a high above. It don't cost a thing just to be in love. We don't have anything but love.
Hi, welcome back to GenderVision. Thanks for joining us for part 2 of our program on marriage equality. Our guests are, we have again Pat Gozemba and Kahn, and we also have now Marilyn Humphries, the photographer who took all the photographs in the book Courting Equality and whose work inspired the book.
And Marilyn is an independent photojournalist whose work has appeared in the New York Times, the Progressive Bay Windows, the Progressive Bay Windows and the Boston Phoenix. And much of Marilyn's work documents social and political events. And you've been doing this for over 2 decades. And I know I first met you at a political event where you were doing the photography. Welcome to GenderVision,
Thank
Marilyn.
you. It's a pleasure to be here.
How did you get started taking pictures?
Well,
If I can call it taking pictures, I don't know if
it certainly was taking pictures in the beginning and still is. I really have Pat to thank for introducing me to a camera and a dark room,
No kidding.
and also to a lot of causes. She was certainly my mentor in that regard.
Yeah, she's the one who got you in trouble.
She certainly did. And it's still going on. So
Well, I first met you probably at a transgender activist event. I'm
Yeah.
sure. I don't know. The Chanel Pickett demonstration. We'll show some pictures later
Yeah.
of
You
that.
documented.
Shall we show some of the photographs
sure.
from Courting Equality? Okay.
And these are Marilyn's photographs, of course.
Of course, and this is the cover shot. Do we know where this is from?
That was Cambridge City Hall on May 17th. Actually, it was 3 in the morning.
3 in the morning.
Yeah.
3 in the morning.
How'd you get the lighting?
It was a flash.
Yeah, amazing.
And, you know, that whole event at Cambridge City Hall went on, I think, till 5 in the morning.
So they started at midnight? Is that
Yeah,
what they did?
there were
Because
so
it was a
many
big deal?
people that they were processing, so many same-sex couples to get marriage licenses.
Yeah.
And it was just a wild, wild event. I mean, there were thousands of people outside cheering and carrying on, and it was a great night.
So that was the very first night that legal same-sex marriage licenses were issued in the United States.
Oh, amazing.
Because previously in California and a few other places, they had been issued, but they were not actually legal.
That was a
so
civil
That was a
disobedience.
civil
Yeah.
disobedience. So
Yeah.
so Cambridge decided, being the city that it is, that they would be first in Massachusetts.
The People's Republic of
the
Cambridge,
People's
yes.
Republic of Cambridge. And they had a whole celebration the night that you could get a marriage license, and actually the first couple to get their license, they went to Cambridge City Hall on May 16th, the night of May 16th, and they tented out in front of City Hall
my goodness.
so that they would be the first in line to get a marriage license. And it was not actually very nice weather. You might notice in that picture there's people in hats and scarves.
yeah.
And though it was May 17th, it was New England, and it was kind of chilly and wet the night before. But Marsha Hams and Susan Shepard were the first couple, and they actually spent the night, 2 nights basically, to get the first in line for a marriage license.
Okay. And this?
That was the day of the decision.
Oh.
So this
That
is
was
before
November 18th, 2003. And they are walking to the press conference. that's Mary Breslauer, who was handling a lot of the communications for GLAAD, I think.
Also host of One in
And this
Town.
is Julie Goodridge and Hillary Goodridge and Julie Goodridge, and they were the lead plaintiffs.
Which the whole case was named.
Yes.
Goodrich, yeah.
Right.
And Pat came in to that because I needed her to bring me some more flashcards for my camera, having run out of the house in a state of panic when I heard at 8 in the morning that the decision had come down, because nobody knew when it was coming.
Sure.
And I think it really spun you around being at that press conference.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of that, Marilyn? A lot of calls like that where you have to rush out?
Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
This was particularly crazy because we had all been waiting for so many months.
Yeah.
And we were calling the courthouse, to try and find out when it would be released. They had a line, and
Sure.
it just, this one was particularly filled with craziness because so many people were waiting.
Yeah. Well, it was certainly a big deal.
Yes, it was a huge deal.
Yeah. You weren't getting much sleep during that time, either,
No,
were you?
no.
Is there a story behind that?
Staying up, past midnight, things didn't stop, and getting up at 6 a.m. to
Yeah.
get out again?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. And this was at Old South Church, the night of the decision. There was a celebration there. And that's Scott Gordikoff, who's now the acting director of Mass Equality, and his partner and child.
Yes.
Amazing.
That was from the same event. That's Denise Simmons, who is now the mayor of Cambridge, and her granddaughter.
She's the mayor now.
Her granddaughter.
Yes.
Yeah, and she's the first African American lesbian mayor in this country.
That's phenomenal.
And this is Bill and Stevens and their family, their children, and they are Beverly residents,
Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, Beverly.
and they're great.
They have a large
Those are
family.
5 adopted children.
My goodness.
So they are pretty incredible. They have a pretty incredible family. I always call those kids the ambassadors for adoption. They are the most wonderful, well-behaved, well-loved children, and they have a fantastic family. Really
And
fantastic
beautiful
family.
I like
picture,
to, Stephen is great. He's very articulate. Both Bill and Stephen are very articulate. Stephen's on the right there. And he said when Governor Romney was ranting after the decision on November 18th, 2003, and when the legislature was going through all its gyrations, trying to amend our Constitution and put civil unions in and to essentially vacate the marriage equality decision, Stephen was like, why doesn't Mitt Romney and Kerry Healy, why don't they come over to my house for dinner and see what family life is really like? They're railing about our families as if there's something horrible about them. Let them come and sit at my kitchen table or dining room table. And I think it would be very difficult for anyone who was in tune with his or her heart to be in their house out in Beverly Farms, and to be with them and to say there's something wrong with this.
Yeah.
I mean, these two guys are so dedicated to those 5 kids, and those 5 kids have turned out to be so wonderful.
And how sad that some people would deny those kids
Yeah.
a loving home.
Right.
And-
Exactly.
Each of these kids came to them through, they were public, they were children who were cared for, wards of the state.
That's right.
And that
They
was...
have a loving home.
They
that
have
is
they have a great
much
loving
better
home. And
for
in the
them.
case of Mary Grace, who's the sitting in Stephen's lap there, Mary Grace's mother actually went through family albums of families who wanted to adopt children, and she chose their family. She chose them, and so she's the youngest child in that family, and
cool
she
is
said,
that?
I want my daughter to be brought up by these 2 men with these other 4 kids.
Oh,
No
that's
kidding.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stephen has a wonderful line I like to tell that where he talks about their wedding. I mean, these guys, to protect their family, they originally they had a ceremony that in the Unitarian Church
Sure.
in Salem that was just for them, and they had Ben then. He was the only child, and Ben was part of the
Ben
ceremony.
is the oldest boy
He's the
on the
oldest
left.
one on the left.
Yeah.
Then they went to Vermont for a civil union, and then when marriage became legal in Massachusetts, they had a huge wedding, and we were sort of laughing, that third time, but they had all their family there and all their neighbors, and Stephen said something that I think really sort of goes to the heart of the importance of marriage, and he said, our wedding gave all our friends and neighbors permission to really love us in a way, and to accept us and love us, because now everybody said, this is okay, it's real, it's all right. So it was sort of like they still they loved us already, but it was like permission to say, yes, it really is okay.
Yeah.
I think the key part you want to emphasize there is that it was legal.
Yeah.
The fact that it was legal gave them permission, and I think that changed it.
That's an old one.
Is it?
Yes.
That was, I don't even know.
1987.
Wow.
87
Okay.
or 88, I
That
forget.
was when it was still all black and white film in the dark room,
Love
and
it.
I'd be processing things in the dark room and jumping into my car with wet prints and driving into Boston to get them
Did
to
you
the
lay
paper.
them out
in
so
the
they
back
dry?
seat, yeah.
That's amazing. Marilyn, it must be a challenge too when you've got demonstrations or you've got large groups of people. How do you figure out what kind of shots you're going to take?
Well, you sort of adapt to whatever is happening, and you really oftentimes have to get smack in the middle of it.
Yep.
And just wait for a moment to come together and kind of jump on it. So,
And you're always one of the most respectful photographers that I've ever seen at
say,
demonstrations
Oh, well,
and
thank
events
you.
that
Especially at the Day of
you
Remembrance
almost don't
event, which is
even
very somber event.
don't even notice, and then we see these amazing photographs that you come up with.
well, thank you. I think that's really important to most
Yeah.
photographers, to stay out of the way and not influence what's happening in front of you.
You do a terrific job of that. I'm going to keep us moving so that we
Please,
can
yeah, we
see
do want to
all
see.
these great photographs.
Yeah, we can just.
What have we got here?
That was a gay pride parade from
Mid-'80s.
mid-'80s, yeah.
Yeah, to
Another
show
family.
when lesbians were
Yeah,
first
'cause when I get
adopting
to
kids or
trans,
having
too.
kids.
Yeah.
Ah,
Those are
Very
great.
nice.
Gennaro.
Yeah.
That's actually not one of Marilyn's photos, but but Marilyn did photograph
I could tell.
Nainea Bayer on the left and Janura Denso on the right, and those were the named plaintiffs in the Hawaii marriage case that got decided in 1993.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure Marilyn has a better photograph of the two of them.
Oh, I don't know that it's better, but they did visit Boston.
Oh, that's great.
And here we have, looks
That-
like an HRC event at least.
Yeah, that's Mary Bonato, and
That was the lead
Peter
attorney.
Harrigan on the left and Stan Baker on the
they
right.
were the Vermont
They were
folks.
They were the
Vermont
named plaintiffs in the Vermont case that was decided in 1999 that actually resulted in the invention of civil unions. I like how people talk now about civil unions as if they existed since biblical time.
Yeah,
But
right.
it was invented in the legislature in Vermont.
That's right.
We can just go through maybe some of those.
Yeah, that's
and then-
all the plaintiffs.
Wow, that's
Yeah, that was
amazing.
when they first filed.
And this is in Vermont? Or
No, this is in
Massachusetts?
downtown Boston at the
Okay.
federal court, the old
Back
federal
to
courthouse.
So there were
And
There were quite a few plaintiffs.
yeah, I was standing in the street trying to take that picture, getting
And
honked
again, wondering how you could get all those folks in. Was it 7 couples that had?
at. Yes.
Yeah,
Well, they
Back
were
up
very
far enough.
cooperative.
yeah. Oh, that's great. It's nice. Too.
And this is the
This is
Goodridges
lovely.
again.
Yeah.
And this was for an ad that ran in the Boston Globe
Oh,
after the decision, talking about their issues as a family.
Yeah.
It was a public relations move to try and help people understand. Because I think when the decision first came down, it really, so many people just did not get what it was all about. And there was, of course, this huge effort made by all sorts of people to educate the citizens of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
these pictures really capture it. Have any of you seen the horrible ad by the opponents of same-sex marriage? A storm is coming.
Yeah,
And
a gathering storm.
Yeah, and my students, I was showing it in my class, and we were looking at it, I was going, it kind of looks like they're in heaven, and people step forward and they go, and I'm a doctor, and I'm such and such, and I'm afraid. And you see these
Yeah.
storm clouds, and Stephen Colbert and other people have kind of pun that, but it speaks to the power of photographs and the power of images, and the way that we relate to images
Right.
is such a primary level. So this is countering
Right.
so much of the negative propaganda.
I think one of the things that's great about Marilyn's photography, and in the past photo of the Goodridges and in this one, is her ability to really capture people in their natural settings and to catch the kind of spirit that's emanating from them. So Marilyn's able to do that in the middle of a demonstration, but she's also able to do that when she does, portraits of couples or individual portraits as well. I think that the relationship between the photographer and the subject is clear when you read a photograph. You see what kind of rapport.
I couldn't agree
Yes,
with you more.
exactly.
When Nancy and I first met, Nancy was showing me some of the photographs that have been taken of her, and a lot of photographers took a lot of pictures of her, and the pictures that I consistently pulled out, and I didn't know Marilyn then,
Yeah.
I just said, these are beautiful. These capture your spirit. This is, when I look at these, I really see you. When I look at some of the other photographs, I see how other people may envision you, but
Right.
this is you, and
Right.
that's the first time I ever saw your
great.
photographs.
Right.
Thank you.
We have another family on bicycles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
These are all the
these are
plaintiff
plaintiffs,
couples.
beautiful,
yeah.
Beautiful. I love
That
the dogs
was one
in
of our
there.
favorites.
I love the dogs.
But I was with Marilyn on that photo shoot, and what was interesting was the way that Marilyn was able to go with some of the ideas that they suggested and what they wanted to do, et cetera. And I'm much more bossy, and I would have been bossing them around much more about where I wanted them to be.
Yeah.
I did boss them a little, but I would have been bossing them much more.
You would have had
to-
pictures of these cloud people.
about what I wanted. But I think Marilyn never would have gotten that shot if I had been
Just
allowed
the way
free
they're
rein.
leaning and everything too
Right.
is just
Right.
lovely.
My favorite was the one that was taken right before
Yeah.
that, when they were trying to get the dogs on the couch.
Oh,
hysterical.
yeah, there's a series. It's
Another
pretty
dog.
funny.
Oh, right. Here's another happy puppy.
Another happy dog.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. It's pretty tree.
Yeah.
That's very nice. What a
Yeah.
lovely
That's a
portrait.
beautiful
couples.
portrait.
Yeah, these
Yes.
portraits of the couples are really good.
Yeah.
Very good.
These are,
We remember these folks. They've
Yeah.
been on GenderVision before.
yeah,
Oh,
Ralph
we
Paul.
interviewed them
Yeah.
at Pride.
Paul and Ralph.
Yeah, they're
Paul
great.
McMahon on the left and Ralph
They're
Hugman,
great.
right? And they sort of became iconic symbols. I mean, I think this photograph is a great one of them. There have been many photographs done of them, and I think this is a great one
Yes.
of them.
Yes.
They're so sweet.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed them. That's Bonato again, I think.
Yeah, that was the day of the decision. This was
Yeah.
part of the craziness at the State
Wow.
House.
Yes,
Okay.
I'll say. That's
And
so intense.
it was wall to wall like that.
Wow. How did you even maneuver through the crowd? Is that difficult?
well,
And
a
everybody's
lot
all
of-
mixed in there. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
They were up
Yeah.
on the steps, so they had there were tiers of them, but you do a lot of apologizing as you push your way through.
That's one of my favorite photos from
Is
the
it?
book. I just love it. I just think that the amount of energy, on both
And you-
sides.
yeah,
I
you
mean,
really see
we
it.
went through months and months and months, and really 3.5 years of struggle over this issue after the court decision, and that's what the book is really about. And that sort of, for me, really encapsulates all of that struggle. And, it's what democracy is about. We were down there fighting for our rights. And eventually we were able to convince our legislature and the people of Massachusetts
That's right.
that, in fact, this is, a wonderful thing to allow people to love each other and marry each other. And it took a long time to do that. It wasn't just the court ruled and everything was hunky-dory.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think what Marilyn was able to do, and when you, Gordon, referred to the long hours that Marilyn put in, I think a lot of people don't understand that she's carrying around, these enormously heavy
She's got the
photo
biggest
bags.
cameras I've ever seen.
Right.
I agree.
All photographers
huge.
carry
The only thing
those
bigger than
cameras.
that is the one
Yeah.
the sports guys use.
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
top.
but they're
That's standard
they're-
equipment.
They're incredibly
Gotta stay in shape to do
Great
that.
cameras. What's remarkable for me about this is the fact that you have intermingled people
That's what I
pro
love,
and
too.
anti
Yeah.
same-sex marriage.
Well,
And they're not fighting with each other.
that was really interesting because in the first few constitutional conventions, nobody had made any effort to separate the pro and con parties, and that was true as well in the State House inside, and it was very interesting, and it got a little. There was a
It get dicey
little
at times.
back and forth, but nothing serious.
Might be better to do it that way rather than having them walled off and, kind
Well,
of.
I think people actually started having conversations with
Yeah.
each other. Although even after they separated them, people were going back and forth talking to each other, and that was very
Oh,
interesting
good.
too.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I did hear the story of one person changing their mind, and I'm trying to remember which colleague of mine told me that story. But they had been talking because they had been at the demonstration together, and this had been an opponent, and they got to know each other over the time that they were demonstrating, and they finally came around and they said, you know what, I'm for same-sex marriage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
great.
great.
That's great.
That's
Oh,
great.
here's Byron Rushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Byron Rushing spoke at the Trans Lobby Day event that we had recently.
That's right.
Ah,
He was
yeah.
so good. He was so
He's
inspiring.
excellent.
He's
He's
wonderful.
always great.
Big
Yeah.
supporter.
Yeah, I like Byron Rushing a lot. Another demonstration photo of Jesus is the Lord.
Kinda
Yeah.
says it.
He's the
pretty-
Lord of some people, not everybody.
Pretty ironic seeing it in front of the State House.
Yeah.
Yeah, of all places. Now we have in the church.
But I think from the role of what a photographer does, that this is a really important picture. You were going back before, Gordine, about the importance of photography and the importance of the image. I mean, that the Religious Coalition for the Freedom to Marry, Carlton Smith, the Reverend Carlton Smith, Unitarian minister, was addressing a group of religious leaders in a church.
Yeah.
And I think that picture, to say, oh, there are people of color who are involved with our movement, you can say that and people hear it and forget it. But you show them the pictures of who was there and who supported what was going on. I think that's what's so important about photography. That's I mean, Marilyn allows us to give witness to what is actually happening because she captures that moment. And if
are
no one were there to
documenting
capture
history.
it, then were there any people of color who were involved in our
Yeah.
movement?
And
Yeah.
let's face it, the media doesn't always
No.
Yeah.
provide a lens for seeing what actually happened.
That's right.
Those guys are great. That was outside of the Arlington Street Church when they actually started performing marriages
Oh, my.
a few weeks after May 17th.
Are they happy, you think?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
And that's Mark
Mark
Solomon.
Yeah.
And he was the head of
Mass
Mass
Equality.
Equality,
Yeah.
the organization
And now
that
is
was
head
and
of,
the head of
California Equality.
California. All right. We have about 5 minutes, so we
So
have to
maybe
move
we should
quickly.
just go through and,
So there we had Deval Patrick and
One of
some
our
other
favorite
folks.
wedding pictures.
yeah.
There's the billboard.
The world doesn't end.
Not
Yeah.
a billboard, but the trailer we referred to.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay, and courtingequality.com. Forgive me for skipping over that so quickly, but
Yeah.
now I'm going to, because I want to get to these other photos, and we wanted to talk with you guys some more too. So
What kind of reactions have you gotten
see
to
what I
the
can do
book
here.
and the photographs?
People have been very supportive
Yeah.
and seem to like it a lot. I think they appreciate our efforts,
Yes.
and more so Pat and Karen's efforts, to really make sense of an incredibly complicated issue as it unfolded in Massachusetts. And I'd like to think that people in other states are reading the book and taking that into consideration as they go forward.
And being inspired.
Right.
now we're going to a completely different subject matter. Now we have some photographs that you took earlier,
Yes.
for the most part, and these are around transgender activism. And
I think this was 95.
yes, this was 1995, the Chanel
Chanel Pickett.
Pickett.
Yeah.
We had a service. She was murdered by a preppy in his bedroom. He got off with assault and battery in 97. But back in
2-year
95,
sentence.
this is Chanel's twin sister, Gabrielle. And this is our memorial service in the Arlington Street Church.
Who we understand was also murdered
Yeah,
No.
later in New
Yeah.
York.
Oh,
Yes.
God, how awful.
Yeah.
yes.
Well, you know, this event was such an eye-opener for me. I was sent to it not really understanding sort of understanding what was going on. And I was just blown away when I walked into that church and saw the people, the folks there, and what was, I think, most of the transgender community.
Yep.
Although there were a lot of non-trans people there.
There
actually.
were too.
A lot
Yeah,
of supporters as
yeah,
well.
there were quite a few supporters.
And I just was appalled when I realized, what was going on.
So this was a forerunner of the Transgender Day of Remembrance. This was, people had actually called me to help me organize this. The people had actually said, Nancy, you should, here, why don't you do this? And so, because I was the most visible trans activist around Boston right then. And so here we are proceeding down the street.
What was the newspaper that sent you to do those
Bay
photos?
Windows.
Bay Windows.
Yes, thank you, Bay Windows.
Um,
Under Jeff Epperly.
Under Jeff Epperly.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
it
although
was.
there were some problems a bit later with that.
There were problems with Jeff Epperly.
Yeah.
But even amongst those problems, good things still happen.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And he's recanted
yes.
for the mistakes he made in the past.
And to have this history is phenomenal.
This is
right?
Gabrielle
look at that,
at the
that's
State
great.
House,
at the gates of the State House,
Right.
yeah.
placing a wreath.
Yeah.
This was 97 at the Cambridge courthouse.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we're demonstrating outside of the trial,
The
the
trial,
murder trial for
Yeah.
William Palmer. And
which was appalling. Even the judge thought it was when the verdict was returned.
yeah, he gave them the maximum. Oh my God, we're down to a minute. There's Penny Ashmatz, a deceased trans person.
I just want to pay tribute to Marilyn's photography because I as someone who studies and records lesbian and gay history, LGBT history in Boston, and that's what the History Project does. We rely on Marilyn so much for every one of the exhibits that we do, whether they're web exhibits or they're standing exhibits. And Marilyn's the go-to person. I mean, she's the photographer of record for the LGBT community
That's
in
right.
Boston
That's
and
right.
outside of Boston as
That's
well.
right.
So we would never have been able to really adequately commemorate 25 years of the AIDS crisis in Boston if Marilyn had not been there with her photographs. And I think the same with the transgender movement, and we see it with the marriage equality movement.
Well, the
Thank
Chanel
you.
Pickett
Oh, we all owe you a debt.
event was
Oh,
the forerunner for
you
the
know.
International
Yeah, we
Trans
do.
Day of
I love
Right.
doing it. It's,
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
no one
Marilyn,
knows
thank you
what
so
to do.
much. Pat,
Thank you.
Karen,
Thank you.
thanks for being
And
with us.
all the work
Thank
that you're
you.
doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that
All
you're
right.
doing. Thank you.
We're late, but we'll see you next
Hopefully
time.
this stretched our gender vision.
Yeah, we certainly did. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for watching.
Good night.
Well, they called her a man, they called her a transvestite. They said she lived a double life. But we know better, we know the truth. We know why Rita died. We know why Rita died. Gazing